listen, in 20 years, won't do an interview. Nobody's ever talked to her, and she's never been interviewed anywhere. And now, understand, I'm not talking about one person. What I just told you applies to 7 people. How they all end up with that. That's part of what you get. I came in this business saying I was gonna expose. When I talked about Michael Jackson, when I talked about R. Kelly, they canceled me for these things because why would you talk about another black dude? Race is not where the line is drawn. It's God's side and the other side. And we don't care nothing about the other side. Period. All of these big dick deviants is all catching hell in 2024. It's up for all of them. It don't matter if you Diddy or whoever you is. TG Jakes, any of them. All lies will be exposed. That's all. And anyone who takes that the wrong way, know why they take it the wrong way.
Stop scrolling. Lock the door. Lower the volume. Because this story didn't knock, it kicked. An old warning just resurfaced like a receipt nobody wanted found. And suddenly the internet is whispering, yelling, and side-eyeing all at once. Katt Williams said something months ago that people laughed off like stand-up material. Now, folks are replaying it like it was a prophecy with captions in all caps. Here's the spark. Claims start flying that 50 Cent allegedly edited a Diddy documentary, removing names, reshaping narratives, and doing it with the calm confidence of a man who knows how power works. And right on cue, Katt Williams' old comments boomerang back into the timeline like, I tried to tell y'all. Coincidence? Maybe. Convenient? Absolutely. Explosive? Oh, you already know. This makes the Kardashians look like they're arguing over packing spaces. Because this isn't just celebrity beef, it's control of the story. The scissors in the edit bay, and the quiet power to decide who gets blurred and who gets bolded. The internet smells smoke, and it's convinced there's a fire behind the curtain. Buckle up. Because once edits start disappearing, truth starts asking questions. It always starts quietly, and that's what makes it dangerous. A clip resurfaces. Not a new clip, not breaking news, just an old moment pulled from the internet's dusty basement. Katt Williams, sitting comfortably in his signature confidence, saying things people laughed off at the time, wild, dramatic, entertaining, easy to dismiss. Until suddenly, those same words start sounding less like comedy and more like a warning label nobody read. Then the claims begin circulating. Not shouted from rooftops, but whispered loudly enough to echo. The allegation floating through the timeline is that 50 Cent allegedly edited Diddy documentary, removing names, tightening narratives, and quietly reshaping the story before it reached the public. No dramatic announcement. No press conference. Just edits. And edits are where power lives. That's when Katt Williams' words came back like a boomerang with receipts. People didn't just repost the clip, they replayed it, slowed it down, quoted it in all caps. Suddenly, the internet wasn't laughing anymore. It was squinting. Because nothing hits harder than a moment you dismissed coming back with context. Now let's be real. Documentaries are edited all the time. That's not controversial. What is controversial is who is rumored to be holding the scissors and why certain pieces allegedly didn't make the final cut. Editing isn't just about pacing. It's about protection, about liability, about choosing which truths get airtime, and which ones get politely escorted out the side door. The moment these claims surfaced, the internet went into investigative mode with zero credentials and unlimited confidence. People started comparing versions, claiming certain names were once present and now mysteriously absent. Screenshots started circulating like they were exhibits in a courtroom drama. Nobody knew for sure what changed, but everyone agreed something felt different, and that feeling is what drives virality. Katt Williams' resurfaced comments became the emotional spine of the conversation. People treated him like the narrator of a true crime series they were only just realizing they'd been watching for years.
He told us. He wasn't lying. Y'all laughed at him.
The internet loves nothing more than retroactive validation. Meanwhile, 50 Cent's reputation loomed large over the discussion. This is a man known for playing chess while others are checking Instagram. Strategic, calculated, fully aware of optics. Whether the claims are true or not, the idea that he could influence a narrative landed because it matched the character. People think they know, And then there's Diddy's name, already heavy with controversy. Any project attached to that orbit is automatically under a microscope. Add rumors of edits, and suddenly every missing detail feels intentional. The documentary stops being content and starts being evidence in a case. Nobody officially opened. The first wave of reaction wasn't rage. It was curiosity dressed as suspicion. People weren't yelling yet. They were asking questions. And questions online don't stay questions for long. They mutate into theories, then into takes, then into convictions. Memes followed because memes always follow. Scissors emojis, director's cut jokes, side-by-side edits with captions like before and after. Humor softened the edge, but the implication stayed sharp. Something was changed, and people wanted to know why. Commentary pages jumped in, framing the situation as another example of powerful figures controlling the narrative. Reaction channels lined up uploads like it was a coordinated release. The tone shifted from curiosity to concern. Not because anyone had proof, but because the pattern felt familiar. And patterns don't need confirmation to scare people. Katt Williams' role in this story grew with every repost. He became the accidental prophet, the guy whose warnings people ignored until they couldn't anymore. His words were dissected like coded messages. People asked if he knew more than he said. If he always does? If comedy was just the delivery system, what made this moment explode wasn't evidence. It was timing. The internet is already sensitive to stories about control, censorship, and hidden hands guiding public narratives. So when claims like this surface, they don't land in a vacuum. They land in a culture primed to distrust edits, spin, and silence, real or perceived, became part of the story. Every non-response felt loud. Every unrelated post felt suspicious. When you're powerful, neutrality doesn't exist online. Everything is interpreted. By the end of the first wave, one thing was clear. This wasn't just about a documentary anymore. It was about who gets to decide the truth. About whether stories are being told or curated. About whether warnings we laugh at today come back as headlines tomorrow. And the most unsettling part? Nobody could prove anything yet. But nobody wanted to stop looking, because once the internet smells a narrative shift, it doesn't let go. Once the claims settled into the timeline, the conversation didn't explode, it stacked. Layer by layer, rumor on top of reaction. Reaction on top of speculation. Speculation wrapped in memes. This wasn't a flash fire. It was a slow-burning fuse that kept hissing louder the more people leaned in. And the internet leaned in hard. First came the celebrity side-eye phase. Not statements, not confirmations. Just those perfectly vague posts that scream, "I know something, but I'm not saying it." Quotes about truth. Captions about narratives. Tweets about editing ethics and who controls the story. Nobody tagged anyone. Everyone knew exactly who was being discussed. This is how Hollywood talks when it doesn't want subpoenas. Katt Williams. Resurfaced clip became the internet's emotional anchor. It played on a loop across platforms, each repost framed like a new discovery. People started analyzing his tone, his pauses, his facial expressions like it was the Zapruder film of comedy commentary. Listen to how calm he is. He knew this would come out. He always tells the truth and y'all just laugh. The internet loves turning hindsight into prophecy. Memes sharpen the edge. Scissors emojis flooded comment sections. Director's cut, jokes went viral. Side-by-side images labeled original version and final edit circulated even when nobody could confirm what changed. Accuracy didn't matter. The implication did. Humor made the accusation palatable, which made it spread faster. Then came the analogies. People compared it to a magician distracting the audience while swapping cards. To a DJ remixing history and calling it a remaster. To a movie trailer that shows explosions but hides the plot. The metaphors landed because they captured the unease. Editing, people argued, isn't neutral. It's directional. 50 Cent's online presence became a Rorschach test. Every caption, every joke, every unrelated post got read like a footnote. Silence became suspicious. Humor became deflection. Even normal activity got interpreted as strategy. When someone is known for controlling narratives, the internet assumes everything is intentional. and then the debate split. One side argued this was overblown. Documentaries are edited all the time. Names get cut for legal reasons. Stories get tightened for pacing. That's filmmaking, not conspiracy. The other side shot back that this is exactly how power operates: quietly, legally, cleanly, with plausible deniability and a final cut. Neither side waited for confirmation. Comment sections turned into mock courtrooms. People presented evidence that ranged from screenshots to vibes. Some claimed insider whispers. Others accused the whole thing of being fan fiction. The loudest voices weren't the most informed, but they were the most confident. And confidence online passes for credibility. What shifted the tone from curiosity to outrage was the idea of gatekeeping. The conversation moved away from Diddy and toward the machinery around him. Who protects whom? Who gets blurred out? How stories are sanitized before they ever reach the public. Editing stopped being a technical process and became a metaphor for influence. Pop culture comparisons exploded. Watergate jokes. This is why there's always an extended edition. Release the uncut version. People joked, but the jokes carried teeth. The demand wasn't for entertainment anymore. It was for transparency. Even if nobody agreed on what that looked like, reaction channels went into overdrive. Thumbnails screamed "Katt was right" in fonts large enough to be seen from space. Titles asked questions they immediately answered with tone alone. Everyone wanted to be first, not accurate. Because in the content economy, speed beats certainty. Meanwhile, Katt Williams' role continued to grow. He wasn't just a comedian anymore, he was being framed as the whistleblower who hid truth inside punchlines. People started pulling other clips, other interviews, other moments where he hinted at industry secrets. The narrative expanded backward, retrofitting meaning onto years of material. The irony was thick. The same people who once called him erratic were now calling him honest. The same words that got laughed off were now treated like classified intel. That's the internet's favorite arc. Mock first. Validate later. As the noise grew, the claims themselves almost became secondary. What mattered was the feeling that something was being managed. That stories were being shaped upstream. That by the time content reaches the public, it's already been filtered through power. Lawyers and image control. The documentary stopped being a documentary. It became a symbol. A stand-in for every time people suspect they're being shown a version instead of the whole picture. Whether the claims were true or not, the distrust was real. And distrust spreads faster than facts. By the time the discourse hit peak volume, the internet wasn't asking, "Did this happen?" anymore. It was asking, "How often does this happen?" The question widened, and once it widens, it never goes back to the original point. The loudest irony of all was how little concrete information anyone actually had. No leaked edits. No official confirmations. No side-by-side timelines verified by sources. Just reactions reacting to reactions. But in a culture primed to distrust power, that was enough. Because outrage doesn't need proof to thrive. It needs plausibility. And this story had that in abundance. As the dust pretended to settle, one thing became clear. The conversation wasn't ending. It was evolving. From claims to consequences. From edits to reputations. From whispers to long-term narratives. And that's when the real damage starts. Because once the internet decides a story fits a pattern, it doesn't wait for evidence. When the noise finally dipped and the internet pretended it was ready to move on, the real fallout clocked in quietly. Viral storms don't end, they rearrange. What lingered wasn't a smoking gun, it was a shift in how people looked at power, edits, and the stories they're handed with a confident smile. The claims didn't need confirmation to do damage. Suspicion had already done the heavy lifting. Katt Williams emerged from the chaos with a strange glow. Not vindication, exactly more like credibility by association. His old warnings, once dismissed as comedic chaos, now carried a different weight. People didn't suddenly declare him right. They said something more dangerous. He might have been onto something. And in internet culture, might is gasoline. 50 Cent's public image absorbed the speculation like a shockwave. Not because anything was proven, but because the idea fit the persona people believe they understand. Strategic, calculated, always 3 moves ahead. Silence became a Rorschach test. Every unrelated post got read as commentary. In the court of public perception, even neutrality gets cross-examined. The documentary itself became collateral. People stopped talking about its content and started talking about its absence. What wasn't shown? What didn't make the cut? What felt sanitized? The project's credibility got debated not on evidence but on vibes. And vibes online can outvote facts by a landslide. What changed most was the conversation around editing. It stopped being a technical step and became a moral question. Who decides what's too risky to show? When does legal caution become narrative control? The internet doesn't need answers to these questions to keep asking them louder. Relationships in the industry shifted subtly, at least in the public imagination. Side comments went quieter. Jokes got sharper. Collaborations got reinterpreted. When a story suggests gatekeeping, everyone near the gate gets watched differently. Not accused, watched. And that watchfulness sticks. The audience split into camps that rarely meet again. One side rolled their eyes and said, "This is how filmmaking works." The other side said, "That's exactly the problem." Both sides felt righteous. Neither side needed proof to feel convinced. The debate didn't resolve. It calcified. What's unsettling is how durable the narrative became without a single verified receipt. Screenshots stayed saved. Clips stayed archived. The phrase "remember when" entered the chat far too early. This wasn't a moment anymore. It was a reference point waiting to be reused whenever power, edits, or control came up again. Katt Williams' catalog started getting remined. Old interviews resurfaced. Old jokes reinterpreted. The internet loves a retroactive through line. It turns coincidence into design and pattern into prophecy. Whether fair or not, that's how myths are built. And here's the quiet truth that nobody wants to admit. Even if nothing more comes out, the damage doesn't reverse. Perception rarely does. Once people suspect a narrative is curated, they watch everything else with narrowed eyes. Trust doesn't shatter loudly. It erodes politely. This wasn't about proving a claim. It was about exposing a fear that stories are being shaped upstream, before they reach us, by hands we don't see. That fear doesn't need confirmation to thrive. It just needs plausibility and repetition. As attention drifts to the next headline, this one doesn't disappear. It settles into the background like a watermark. Ready to resurface. Ready to be cited. Ready to be weaponized in future debates about truth and control. In the end, the most revealing part wasn't the allegation. It was the reaction. How quickly people believed the possibility. How easily skepticism turned into certainty. And how fast a warning once laughed at became a lens people refused to put down. Because in this era, clarity doesn't win the algorithm if you made it this far. Congratulations, you didn't just watch a video. You sat through a full-blown internet investigation powered by suspicion, screenshots, and side-eye. Now, don't act brand new, like you don't have an opinion. Smash that like button like it personally edited the truth out of your favorite documentary. Hit subscribe like you're securing access before the next warning gets laughed at. And then proven uncomfortable later. Jump straight into the comments because this story lives there now. Was Katt Williams ahead of the curve? Or is the internet connecting dots that don't exist? Do edits equal protection? Or is this just how the industry works behind closed doors? Say it loud, say it messy. Say it respectfully reckless, because the comment section is where theories become headlines. Share this video with that one friend who swears they don't believe conspiracies, but somehow remembers every industry rumor from the last 10 years. You know exactly who that is. Let them catch up. Because missing context is how bad takes are born and repeated confidently. And don't get comfortable. Stories like this don't end. They reload. New clips surface. Old warnings resurface. Silence gets louder. And suddenly everyone's asking why nobody paid attention the first time. Blink and you miss it. And nobody likes being the last one saying, wait, when did this start? This channel exists for moments exactly like this, where comedy turns prophetic, edits turn suspicious, and power leaves fingerprints without leaving names. No fake certainty, no blind loyalty. Just the uncomfortable space where questions live longer than answers. So stay locked in, stay skeptical, and stay curious. Because the truth rarely trends clean, the edit is never neutral. And the next I told you so is already loading. This is Fame Blueprint, where every story has a draft. And not everyone makes the final cut. One makes the final cut.